have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
And I'm Erin Johns.
And Ann will be back next week, but it's great to have you.
Nice to be back and in the studio for the first time.
Yes, welcome. So in the news this week, while Trump won the Iowa caucuses, half of Republicans there rejected him, and a large percentage of them say they'll vote for Biden if Trump is the nominee.
Meanwhile, President Biden has actually nominated 2 more out LGBTQ federal judges, and he's standing with a trans inmate in Georgia.
Republican presidential hopefuls continue to try to outdo each other in transphobia, and I would add racism.
And the Supreme Court has sidestepped a challenge to a school allowing students access to bathrooms based on their gender identity.
Alabama's law against gender-affirming care was allowed to go into effect by an appeals court, and West Virginia is seeking to ban such care for trans young adults now.
And a school board in Montana has voted to allow 2 students to leave their class because their teacher is a lesbian.
Wow. That book banner, Bill O'Reilly, got 2 of his killing books banned in Florida, and now he's pissed off.
And Taiwan has elected a pro-LGBTQ leader. And we also talk about some top politicians elsewhere in Europe.
And the Greek government has moved closer to same-sex marriage.
Very sadly, a 21-year-old lesbian in Brazil has been brutally murdered.
Awful story. We are going to review Prayer for the French Republic on Broadway by gay playwright Joshua Harmon.
Funnily enough, we both saw that.
We were there together, we didn't even know.
And we're also going to give you the LGBTQ lowdown on the Critics' Choice Awards and the Emmys. There were a lot of gay highlights this year.
There sure were. But we start with the Iowa caucuses, if you're not too sick of hearing about them. Trump did win an historically large victory at in Iowa. From his dedicated base, even though it was awful weather. Now, the silver lining, I would say, is that 31% say they will not vote for him if he is. These are the people who in Iowa, Republicans. They won't vote for him if he's criminally convicted. I don't know if it's going to happen in time, but that doesn't mean, of course, that they're going to vote for Biden. And 65% said the conviction doesn't matter, which is. So it's depressing how many people vote for, authoritarian rule. But, when there's the little dictator, there's the cover of the New Yorker this week. Democracy doesn't work for a lot of people. We have a democracy. Do we get what we want? Do we get the kinds of things that most people want? We don't get it out of our government. So people just say, screw it. I mean, you want to defend democracy, but we're not getting it. We want this. I
think what was concerning for me, and I think what is making a lot of people very worried right now, is that he is not. People are not over Trump. The Republicans are not letting him go. The religious right seem to be embracing him more steadfastly than before. He's the preferred candidate, and he knows it. So the results of this caucus are going to embolden him, I think. He left DeSantis and Haley for dead. They were at 21 and 19%. And this was 6 weeks after DeSantis bragged that without doubt he was going to win Iowa. He was sure of it.
Yes, but again, a total of 49% voted for someone else. And the interesting statistic is that 11, almost half did not caucus for Trump. 11% of caucus goers said they'll vote for Biden if Trump is the nominee.
Yeah.
They'll vote for Biden. Not that they're not going to vote or something. And of Nikki Haley's 20% that she got, 43% said if Trump is the nominee, they're going to vote for Biden. Now that means they really don't want Trump. And a lot of commentators are saying at this point, a lot of people didn't think Trump could come back and be we worry about it. But when when they realize that that's who they're going to get back if they don't vote for Biden, we hope people will come to some kind of a rational conclusion.
I don't know. I'm definitely worried. I mean, he won 98 out of 99 counties. And, DeSantis, sour grapes, said, yeah, well, the media is to blame. They called it too quick. They called it 31 minutes into it. And
he's a whiner. People don't like whiners.
Yeah, well.
And Nikki Haley, she got in trouble over the remark that, she didn't mention slavery causing the Civil War. Well, this week, she said, we're not a racist country. We have never been a racist country.
Boy.
I
Wow.
mean, read your Constitution. Enslaved people were defined as 3/5 of a human being. Come on.
I think the way she keeps hedging her bets about certain things is not doing her any favors in the debates. I don't know what Nikki Haley's...
Well, now she says she's not debating unless Trump debates.
Well, I don't know her brand. I don't
she's
know
not
what her
debating
message is.
DeSantis anymore.
Right. Well,
This could get very uninteresting very fast. Trump is looking hard at the reactionary, sycophantic Congress member Elise Stefanik, from upstate New York, as his running mate, because she went on TV and she echoed his line that the January 6th people who are arrested and in prison are hostages, which is so offensive, especially in light of what's going on in the Middle East and everything, because that's the current word people are hearing about what happened to
Elise Stefanik. But what does she look like? If she doesn't look like a Fox newscaster, he's not going to be interested, surely.
Well, they also say he's looking at Kristi Noem up there in South Dakota. So, because of all this,
Yes.
Our friends at the activist groups are running StopTheCoop2025.org. Go there. They're going to have a rally in Washington, D.C. on January 27th, 1 p.m. at the Heritage Foundation. That is at 214 Massachusetts Avenue. It's about more than Trump. It's about a blueprint to achieve a mantling of democracy from the Heritage Foundation.
It's connected to that viral thing we saw, that 2025 report that is all the step-by-step planning that can take us into a fascist state. So look, if you go, there's free buses from New York City to DC. You're going to be joining activists, advocates, and the organisers from across the country as they are trying to flush out who are the architects of this plan.
Right. Well, I wish we were as organized with our plan when we get power. I mean, we are somewhat, and we're going to talk about that. By the way, I just read that the Democrats are going to finally focus on getting state legislatures back. I mean, we lost them in Obama's midterm elections in 2010. A total disaster. Not 2010, 2012, after the 2010 census, because we don't focus on those things enough. We're too national. You've got to focus on that. So they're spending $60 million trying to win back Arizona and New Hampshire and the Pennsylvania Senate, and hold on to very thin margins in Michigan, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. That's all very important. I mean, because state legislatures, especially now that these legislatures, they're going to be very interested in stealing the election for real, if they can, and perhaps even legally under our crazy Constitution. So watch out. All right. Let's talk about Biden.
Well, Biden's doing some terrific things. Sleepy Joe is still making some really major moves. He has 2 more LGBTQ judicial nominations up his sleeve. This means he'll be on track to appointing a record number, 11, I think, in total. So who's up next? It's Judge Melissa Dubose for the District Court of Rhode Island.
We have a picture of her.
Yes, and if she is confirmed, she's going to be the first LGBTQ judge and the first person of colour to serve in that state, in that court. And also awaiting confirmation is Nicole Berner.
Well, let's finish on Melissa. She worked as a prosecutor for that state attorney general's office. And prior to her legal career, she spent 10 years as a high school history and social studies teacher. That's very encouraging.
Terrific. She knows what's at stake in the culture wars, doesn't she? That's fabulous.
And she's now an associate judge of the Rhode Island District Court. Yeah.
Right. And,
Next.
And well, Nicole Byrne is going to be for the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I don't know much about Byrne. What's her background?
Well, she'd be the first LGBTQ judge there. She's the general counsel to the Service Employees International Union, and she's been a staff, which also is a union word, and she has been a staff attorney for Planned Parenthood of America in D.C. She clerked for several federal judges, and she resides in Maryland. Yeah, so those are...
Well, they're solid choices, aren't they? So, yes, that in his first term, 11 LGBTQ
And
judges.
Obama only did, I'm not trying to knock Obama,
No.
we loved him in many ways, but he only did 11, of course, LGBTQ judges in the course of two terms.
Yes.
But times have changed,
They
and Joe
certainly
Biden
have.
is on to that.
I like how, people knock Joe Biden, but boy, I like how responsive he is. I really do. He's getting stuff done.
Well, that's what you want. I mean, you want a president who will listen. I mean, he didn't always have these instincts, but he listens, and that's very important. You want to be able to move them. I can't imagine moving.
Yeah, the clock is ticking, and he knows it. He's also doing a great thing here in Georgia, the state of Georgia. Joe Biden's, I think it's the Department of Justice, is getting behind the plea of a transgender prisoner going by the name ID'd only as Jane Doe. They are a 55-year-old woman. They've identified as a woman and been living as a woman since 1988. This lady is now basically alleging decades of violent abuse by male inmates and guards in the prison system.
Denied surgery,
Denied
denied hormone treatment.
Yes, and denied access to items in the women's commissary, which of course are some of the bare comforts you can get in prison. But anyway, she's saying that her Eighth Amendment constitutional protections have been violated.
Against cruel and unusual punishment.
Which it would be if you're being denied living in the gender that you've identified as for decades.
And
also,
a violation of the Americans with
Yes.
Disabilities Act and the Federal Rehabilitation Act.
Which is incredibly important. The Georgia chapter of the ACLU has also filed a brief in the case. So we hope some movement.
And I can imagine the Republicans will use this against Biden, because it comes at a time when Republicans are really trying to outdo each other in attacking trans rights and humanity. DeSantis' super PAC ran an ad attacking, now get this, Tricky Nikki Haley, that's what they're calling her, for supporting the radical trans agenda, which she does not, by a mile.
She doesn't. But look, our Jane Doe has had 2 suicide attempts and in July 2022 attempted self-castration. So this is actually a pretty serious case.
And we're going to talk about, later on the Emmy Awards and things, and how much people talked about the need for a lot more understanding in the world for trans people because of the way they're being piled on.
Absolutely.
All right, should we go to Florida?
Yes, always.
All right. So it's the epicenter of book banning, especially in Escambia, there on the Panhandle, right? And they've now banned, we told you how they've banned dictionaries and encyclopedias. There's going to be nothing on the shelves. But hey, kids, it is all on the internet. You go to dictionary.com and you can look up the meaning of any word and a lot of other things. Okay. I always say that because these book bannings are so stupid. But anyway, disgraced former Fox News anchor Bill O'Reilly, we have a picture of him, 2 of his books have been banned, Killing Jesus and Killing Reagan. These are bestsellers. O'Reilly made a killing on those books, but he is really pissed off about the censorship of his books, though he contributed to the mostly anti-LGBTQ, anti-black atmosphere that led to book banning. DeSantis keeps lying and says it's all about banning pornography, and his crusade to free students from sexualization. I mean, come on. But as we've reported, they're now banning all these other things. A judge in Florida has allowed a lawsuit by PEN America, the writers group which fights censorship, and Random House to move forward against that ban.
Oh, all of O'Reilly's books have the word killing in the title. I know we live in the Republic of Gilead these days, but what does he expect? I mean, you create these climates, they're going to turn on you as well.
Yes. Yes. Tennessee.
Oh yes. Now this is another fabulous thing about Republicans doing the wrong thing. A Tennessee school board member who is backed by Mums for Liberty has resigned after being arrested for stealing hundreds of dollars of goods from Target. Kerry Blair, 43, has been charged with theft of property under $1,000 and booked into jail. Goodness me.
Unlike that swinger, Bridget Ziegler, the founder of Moms for Liberty down in Florida, who has not resigned. But there are people calling on her to resign. Her husband has been removed as the chair of the. This is the people who were involved in the threesome with another woman and all this stuff, the hypocrites.
Speaking of Mums for Liberty, they do apparently have an event, their first event ever, a kind of town hall meeting, held here in New York, allegedly tomorrow, which is sort of surprising and outraging many of our activists. While we're taping,
it's January 18th at 5:30.
Right, on the Upper East Side at a place called the Bohemian Benevolent and Literary Association on East 73rd Street, allegedly.
320, not allegedly, it's happening.
It's happening?
Oh, yes. I talked to the organizers.
They've confirmed the location?
Oh, I talked to the organizers. 321 East 73rd Street. If you can hear my voice. There have been calls for the Czech government, which operates the hall, they own the hall, to cancel the booking. And when the government found out about the booking, they said, we feel terrible about it, but we're going to change all the rules about bookings, but we can't break a contract. So there will be a protest there.
This is a group, by the way, that is considered to be a far-right extremist organisation by the Southern Poverty Law Centre.
Well, Moms for Liberty is outrageous, but they're losing their mojo with all these scandals and things.
Yes.
People are resigning. People are changing. People who were with them are calling themselves something else now. I mean, it was always a grass tops organization. And again, why do these groups exist? They're funded by these Heritage Foundation, all these big right-wing groups
to stir up
who stir it all up so that they can get power.
Absolutely.
And they don't care who they step on in order to hold power. And that's outrageous.
That's right.
All right. What about what's happening in Idaho at the
university? So a group of LGBTQ students are suing the College of Law, basically alleging discrimination and that there were racist terms used in class and that they were attacked at a party. Now, one of the things that is kind of outrageous about this case is it's the third legal action against the university in just a couple of years.
And they're saying the administration did not properly investigate this. Much of it is coming from the Christian Legal Society, the abuse, who themselves sued for the right to speak out against gay relationships and the right to discriminate based on sexual orientation and gender identity. We want the right to discriminate against you.
Well, the College of Law, I mean, you'd think they'd know their business. But look, in September 2023, the university actually settled a discrimination lawsuit with a former professor for $750,000. So watch out.
Right. In Indiana, the GOP, the Republicans, are targeting LGBTQ people with a slew. This is going to be happening from now until these legislatures are out of session. We thought they had exhausted themselves last year, but they've come up with new things because it's an election year and they want to really keep things going. So basically, one of the new bills, it voids any legal recognition of transgender people entirely. The state would recognize gender based on sex organs. I mean, it could legally go after women who have had hysterectomies because they've lost a sex organ.
Right.
I mean, then you're no longer, what, a woman? I mean, seriously, they don't write these things very well. It strikes out gender in every law, and it replaces it with biological sex. And another bill says that marriages between one man and one woman, I don't know who the one man and one woman in the country who's going to be able to get married in Indiana are, but any other marriage is void in Indiana, even if the marriage is lawful in the place where it is solemnized. They're piling on the hate. And when they do this, it's more than just standing up principles. This creates a violent climate against us everywhere.
Yeah. It's sad. And so I have so many gay friends in Indiana, so that makes me very sad.
In Ohio, even the Republican governor, Mike DeWine, thinks that the 2 transgender candidates who got knocked off the ballot, because they have a law there that says if you change your name in the last 5 years, we reported on this, then you have to list that as well, so people, you're not trying to sneak in. But the protest is over the selective enforcement of the law. And of course, one of the selective enforcements is, well, actually, there's an exemption. If you change your name because you get married, you don't have to list it. Well, so, I mean, come on. That's not fair. I mean, we need to know who you were.
Yes, and in Alabama, the anti-trans laws are going into effect now. They can begin to immediately enforce the ban against any puberty blockers or hormone treatment to treat transgender people under the age of 19.
Yeah, the law was on hold after it was passed in 2022 because we had a good federal judge who said, put a hold on it. But this was the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. It also makes doctors who provide the care subject to 10 years in prison and the loss of a medical license. It's just the kind of law that's going to keep a lot of good doctors in Alabama, where you have a lack of health care as it is, for God's sakes. But 22 states have similar laws.
I mean, it's such a much ado about nothing, given that I think the Williams Institute estimates that less than 1% of Alabamians aged 13 to 17 are transgender.
It's just evil politics is what it is. And in West Virginia, the Republican legislators have filed a bill that not only bans gender-affirming care for young, for minors, but for young trans adults up to 21, but requires licensed mental health professionals to practice conversion therapy on trans people. This is really getting medieval.
And this is Senate Bill 197, right?
They already banned gender-affirming care for minors. The new bill compares being transgender to pedophilia as another example of sexual deviation.
Right.
Wow.
Right, it's obscene matter. That's its classification, obscene matter. And so you have to be no more than 2,500 feet of a school. And basically any transvestite and or transgender exposure performances or display to any minor. So that now means walking down the street past a school. Yes.
That's nuts. But it's interesting. Now, look, I don't think... most people, have a good understanding of transgender people and things, and we have a lot of education to do. But it's come out in the open because of these attacks, and so people have a misunderstanding. But it's also getting the issue discussed, and as a result, I'm going to say it's as a result, diagnoses of gender dysphoria skyrocketed from 2018 to 2022, mostly in red states. Indiana, which we just talked about, Utah, South Carolina, and Alaska, the purple state of Virginia as well. The Republicans stirred all this up, and I think this is one of the results.
And if you want to read more about this, it's from a report called the Definitive Healthcare Report. We had an increase in Virginia of 274% and 183% in Alaska of more people experiencing gender dysphoria.
Well, look, when I was growing up, and I'm 70 years old, all right, there were some books in the library that had gay themes. Of course, most of them were like psychology books saying we were sick. But I would go to the library anyway. But I found gay novels. I found gay magazines at my local store. Finding information was hard in those days. We didn't have the internet and all that stuff. And people have trouble coming to an understanding of themselves when they don't have information. That's why, we used to be able to be in denial about who we are, people of my generation, to some extent. Be in denial. Well, I couldn't be that and all that stuff. But I think now, with all the information that's out there, it's very hard to be in denial about who you are. And now, especially with transgender, there is so much more information out there now.
Yeah. I feel sad for those people in those states that aren't going to get the support they need.
Well, we support you here at Gay USA, and we thank you for supporting us as well.
Are we talking about Montana now? Speaking of education, a Montana school board has voted to let parents remove children from a classroom taught by a lesbian teacher. I know 2 kids are going to be removed from the elementary school teacher's class because she mentioned that she had a wife. This was all happening in Frenchtown Intermediate School in Frenchtown, Montana.
What happened was she had a picture of
Yes.
herself with a woman.
Yes.
And the kid said, "Oh, who's that?" And she said, "It's my wife." I mean, this is a crime.
This is in a getting to know you activity, and I feel for her because I was a teacher of younger college age students, and they are curious about your personal life, and you kind of
How'd you handle it?
Well, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And if you try to keep yourself neutral and your identity neutral, because you want to privilege their identities, they become more intrigued about who you are and who you're with, and then they're googling you all the time. If you try to come forth and say, "This is my life. I have a partner, or I have a wife, or I have a husband," you're in trouble as well.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know exactly how it is in the schools right now because I was more active in the schools years ago, but a lot of LGBTQ teachers are very nervous about being out to their colleagues, right?
Yeah,
but
I
they're
was
very nervous about being out to their students because it sort of gives them something. You know, you tell them you're gay, and then you got a kid in the back of the room going, saying slurs
Or
under
saying
their
that's
breath.
why she doesn't like me. That's why she gave a bad grade, which happened to me.
Or whatever. So I understand it's hard for teaching profession. I think it's changing. I mean, I do know people even in the, 80s and 90s who were out to their students, but often elementary school students, because those kids are very accepting. I mean, when they get to the 6th grade, it gets to be a problem. No, I'm
No, I think
kidding.
it's the parents are not. I think the kid goes home and tells the parents, and the parents get upset on the kid's behalf. So
Yeah, well, that's what happened in Montana. And so the school board said no, if they want to remove you want to remove your kids from having a lesbian teacher, it was like a 3-2 vote. Yes, you can do that. So, but the great thing is, there are parents who are calling for the resignation of the board chair and have filed a discrimination complaint with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights and started an online petition to protect the right of students and teachers to be out.
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. So that's the encouraging thing.
Yes.
There are people in Montana, in all of these, Indiana, all
Yes.
these places who are standing up for them. But even in New York City here, story I read in the Gay City News this week, we have something called the, what do they call it? The Panel for Education Policy. The mayor appoints an education policy board. I got somewhat knocked off the board once because I read, when I got the press release about, her, I looked her up and she had all this anti-gay stuff. So I just called, Eric Adams' office and said, well, actually, it was brought to his attention by Alan Roscoff, the activist, and they got rid of her, and she was very upset. But now there are 2 members now who are making all these transphobic remarks, saying that there's no such thing as trans kids,
Yes.
that social justice movements are destroying this country, and so now they want to get rid of. There is calls to get rid of them. And the Department of Education says their remarks are despicable, but they ought to be gotten rid of. Off the board, you can have a life, but you can't make policy for the schools with
Totally.
attitudes like this.
Absolutely. God.
All right. Crime.
Yeah, shocking news out of New Orleans. This is a terrible story. I felt so badly for these young men. I was only in New Orleans recently, and I did feel there's a vibe there. They haven't quite come back from the pandemic, but it did make
Who has?
The city was still a little bit rough around the edges. But look, a business owner couple, they owned a bakery, a bagel shop in Tacoma, Washington, called Howdy Bagels.
I got a picture of them.
Lovely couple, Jacob Carter and his husband Daniel Blagovich.
I think that's Jacob there on the left.
Yes, they were.
He was, yeah.
Basically just having a vacation in New Orleans. They were very excited to be in such a vibrant city and such a historically, in many ways, very gay-friendly city. Our friend Brian Batt lives there and owns a beautiful homeware store there. But they were, Jacob was shot by a gunman at about 1:30 in the morning. His husband said that he died in his arms. And New Orleans police have not arrested or gotten a witness ID of the assailant.
I thought there was a 16-year-old who was identified.
Oh, he has been.
I think
You're
so.
up on.
But they don't
me.
identify him
I see.
because he's 16 years old.
No arrests have been made though. Or have they taken him into custody?
I think
All
they
right,
have.
very good.
And well, anyway, their bagel shop was known as a proudly queer company, according to the News Tribune, and a safe haven for people in Tacoma. The motive for the crime is unknown.
What is the motive? I mean, could it be robbery, or we don't know?
We don't know. It was 1 o'clock in the morning in the French Quarter, which is not so late or anything.
No, not for New Orleans.
What's the problem?
Not for New Orleans, but they have now look, the bagel store has started a GoFundMe campaign. They do want to raise about $50,000 to cover staff wages. The store is actually closed at the moment while, of course, Daniel Blagovich deals with this terrible grief, no doubt he's going to be going through. It's so sad because Jacob previously worked as a photographer in the Middle East, and you would think if you're a news journalist serving in the Middle East, this is not the place to die, is on vacation in the States with your husband.
Can happen
Very
anywhere.
sad. Very sad.
We had a beloved, crossing guard in New York who was shot on the subway. He was trying to break up a fight.
Terrible, over music.
Somebody in our neighborhood.
Terrible.
Anyway. All right. In Harlem, however, a suspect who brutally assaulted a man on a subway, shouting homophobic slurs, is at large, but police have released a photo of him. And there it is. It took place on 125th Street platform. 25-year-old man was taking selfies on the platform, and the perpetrator demanded that he delete them, called the man a faggot, and then punched him multiple times in the face around 8 p.m. So if you have any info on this guy, please call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS or log onto the Crime Stoppers website.
So amazed. Don't people realize there's cameras everywhere?
Well, maybe not enough, but I mean, that at least they got a picture of this guy.
Yes.
We hope someone will turn him in.
Oh, over to Connecticut now? Maryland now?
Well, Maryland, a man who threatened in a voicemail to the Human Rights Campaign.
Oh, yes, that guy.
All right. He threatened to slaughter LGBTQ people. He's been sentenced to 2 years in prison. 34-year-old Adam Natina of West Friendship, Maryland, made the calls. This was after a trans man was the perpetrator who shot and killed 6 at the Covenant School in
Nashville,
Tennessee in March. So his messages said things like, "You want a war? We'll effing slaughter you back. Cut your throats." You get the idea. "We're going to kill you 10 times more in full." And then he threatened elected officials as well. You don't hear us threatening, all heterosexuals because the majority of the crimes, of course, are committed by heterosexuals in a heterosexual dominant society. We don't talk that way. No. But this is the way that some of these people think.
What did they give him? What's the sentence?
2 years.
2 years, that's
2 years in prison for threatening. All right. In Colorado, the shooter who killed 5 and endangered 40 at the LGBTQ club in Colorado Springs pled guilty to new federal charges. He's already serving life in prison for state charges.
I was so confused about this because he pled guilty to the state charges.
Yes, and he got life in prison.
Yes.
So then they brought new hate crimes charges and violations of firearms laws, which could also carry the death penalty.
I see. So this is why he's pleading not guilty.
He's pleading guilty to this.
He is pleading guilty to this. That's right. He was not guilty for the state offences, and he's pleading guilty.
Right.
So he's trying to do it to avoid a death penalty.
Yes.
This is what you're saying.
That's what he's up to.
All right.
This was
they are non-binary.
This was back November 2022. Okay. In Texas, a woman has been arrested for murdering her 18-year-old girlfriend.
Terribly sad.
Shania Turner, 24, believed to have been in a relationship with Tanya Horn, who was reported missing on January 4th. Her body was discovered in a bayou in Houston. It was ruled a homicide. She was strangled. Turner
Compression to the neck. She's only 18 years old, right?
Charged with murder.
Very sad.
Very sad. All right, now Connecticut.
Oh yeah, Connecticut. This was fascinating. I always think of Connecticut as such a bedroom community to New York City and so liberal. But in this town of Enfield, which is a majority Republican town, pride flags have been banned from hanging in government spaces and buildings. This is Enfield, Connecticut.
This was a 6-5 vote.
6-5 of councillors. But this is intriguing to me as the raison d'etre behind this ruling. So the only flags that may be hung from public buildings are the US and the state flags and certain military flags.
Certain military flags? What if it's from a military gay group?
Well, no. An interim town attorney, Tom Tyler, said the measure was not born of anti-LGBTQ bias, but it was to protect other groups from demanding that they have their flags flown as well. He mentioned ISIS and the IRA.
But the town attorney also accused supporters of the pride flags of trying to indoctrinate students with transgender ideology.
There you go.
Because, kids, if you see an LGBTQ flag, it's going to turn you gay or transsexual.
I mean,
insane.
Yeah, it's. He was worried about their little town becoming the gateway to ISIS. I
well,
mean,
now
it's
two
fantastic.
of the Republicans who were on the board had voted in favor of pride flags when in 2022, but you know the Republican machine has hate machine has accelerated since Enfield Pride isn't now. So Enfield Pride, they have an Enfield Pride group,
Oh,
it's
they
a
do.
little town. They are encouraging businesses and citizens to fly pride flags. So you're probably going to see more pride flags in town
That's right.
than you ever saw before, at least in June.
Like, I'm going to move there and put a pride flag on my
Be careful.
rocking chair porch. Yeah.
Well, you know, we'll talk more when we get to the prayer for the French Republic. We'll review
Right.
that at the end of the show.
All right. We should
move
get a
on.
wriggle on.
Minnesota?
Sports, yes. Karl Anthony Towns, who is a 3-time NBA All-Star, personally welcomed the LGBT community to the Minnesota Timberwolves Pride Night, and he also
We have a picture of him.
took the mic and even gave a special personal welcome to Twin Cities Pride Executive Director Andy Otto and his family as
there they
special
are.
guests.
So it's a big deal.
Big deal.
And he made them his personal guests. And you know, when these big stars
I think so.
side with us, it's very
And he
important.
posted on his personal Instagram account too, which is, his
Very
heart's really in
important.
it. So that was lovely. Thank
And
you very much.
congratulations to the, not that he needs any from us, but the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman. You've heard of him. He's been in the news. OpenAI powers ChatGPT, which,
yes.
which
I
Marin
use.
is introducing me to. He married his partner, software engineer Oliver Mulherin from
Australia!
They did it in Hawaii.
Good choice, Sam. Good choice. What a catch.
Now, they were asked by NBC about the photos of the event to make sure that they weren't AI fakes. And they said, no, Altman confirmed that they were not. Time magazine named Altman CEO of the Year in 2023, and Mulherin is one of your people.
Yes, and Sam says, married my best friend and love of my life. Well, I wish the happy couple all the success in the world.
Moving along. International news?
Yes. Taiwan, now, Lai Ching has been obviously elected. We're very happy about this because he is so LGBTQ supportive in the Asian region. And, of course, Taiwan is the leader, I believe, of rights in the region.
One of them. They
One of
have
them?
same-sex marriage, and he said
do.
we're going to do more.
They have same-sex marriage legalized in 2019. Their first transgender minister, Audrey Tang, was elected in 2016.
Wow. He's
An
a
adoption
doctor turned politician.
Yes.
Has said that, let's see, something else. Well, of course, his standing up for gay rights, beyond the fact that he also wants Taiwan to remain
independent.
They're not allowed to say they're independent, but
No.
but free of incursion from the Chinese who say they own them. That the pro-LGBTQ stuff is not going to endear him with Xi of China either. It's a third term for his party. He succeeds President Tsai Ing-wen, who was term limited, another concept foreign to autocracies such as China.
Totally.
She was the first female president of Taiwan, something foreign to the United States.
Yes.
We haven't had one yet.
What about France? We've got quite a bit of movement there.
About
President Macron, of course, appointing Gabriel Attal
as the prime minister. So while the world media has highlighted that he's the youngest prime minister and the first gay, his being gay has been omitted from many French news reports. And they say in France, this is part of le droit à à l'indifférence, the right not to care.
I see.
That you're not supposed to talk about these things. I mean, we don't care. You know, you're gay. Oh, okay. Oh, blah, blah. But it's the right to be essentially ignored. So he has talked about the bullying that he experienced as a student.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's been reluctant. He was the education minister, but he's been reluctant as education minister to pursue an investigation into a bullied gay teen who took his own life. And we reported that the member of the European Parliament, Stéphane Séjourné, was his domestic partner. Emphasis should have been on the was. They're not together anymore.
Apparently not. But he is the new French Foreign and European Affairs Minister. Boy, he's got his work cut out for him.
We have a picture of him there with Zelensky, I think.
Yes, he has pledged Zelensky and Ukraine as much support as they can give, as France can give. So that
was one of his first acts.
Yes.
But Macron has also appointed an outspoken conservative, Rachida Dati, as culture minister, despite having little cultural experience. His party is behind in the polls to the neo-fascist leader, Marine Le Pen, more about which when we in our culture news. Now, Macron apparently can't run again, and so it's going to be his party that's going to be up against her. And then the French Union of Jewish Students has called for sanctions against people who have written anti-Semitic and homophobic comments about Prime Minister Attal on social network X. Attal is a baptized Christian, but his late father told him that he would feel Jewish, his father was Jewish, all his life and would always face anti-Semitism because he had a Jewish name.
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Not interesting, outrageous.
Yes.
All right.
Over in Ireland, shall we mention that the Minister of State, Jack Chambers, has come out on Instagram. He's the Irish Member of Parliament, Lower Parliament, and he said that support from family and friends encouraged him to share the news. He posted on Instagram, "I'm starting 2024 by telling you all that I am proud to say that I am gay, and sharing this information is becoming increasingly unremarkable," he said, noting the increasing acceptance in Ireland.
33 years old.
33 years old.
A lot of, yeah. And in the United Kingdom, a Labour Party candidate in the upcoming by-election for Parliament from Hackney in London was suspended by the party for transphobic remarks. Laura Pascal, in a tight race on January 18th, which is tomorrow as we tape, for which she will still stand for election, but they're disciplining her. She posted on X that trans women are not female, but Labour has an official, even though the Labour's standing up to her, Labour has an official position defending single-sex spaces for women. The Conservatives, though, are running really transphobic campaigns.
And over in Greece, we've got Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis says that legislation for same-sex marriage is coming very soon. The proposed law would not extend the right to surrogacy to gay parents, which is, of course, the big fear of the Greek Orthodox Church there. It's why they didn't want same-sex marriage to go through. They assumed parenting rights would be next.
So he's sort of with the Roman Catholic Pope on the surrogacy issue, and I don't mean this to be blasphemous at all, but I saw a meme this week. May I point out the most famous surrogate in history who bore the Christ child was the Virgin Mary by way of the Holy Spirit. I mean, that is what Catholics believe. That, I mean, if that's not surrogacy of a sort,
of course it is.
What is?
Of course it is. All right, what about Russia? This tickled me, this story.
Make us laugh.
Well, the Russian equivalent of MTV, I suppose. It is a music channel owned by the Russian energy giant Gazprom. They've been fined $11,300 for airing a 1990s music video which features a 9-second lesbian kiss.
There it is on the screen. Shocking.
Well, you know, look, it used to be art, now it's propaganda. This was a video clip for a band called Tansy Minus, and the kiss was meant to symbolise how fabulous it was to live in a big city.
Yeah, the channel argued that the video promotes love for Russian cities.
Yeah.
But love is not much of a value in totalitarian Russia these days, nor in Brazil. We learned of the brutal killing of a 21-year-old lesbian. I have a picture of her, Carol Campelo, back in December in the state of Maranhão. Carol...
Ana Caroline Sousa Campeo.
Yeah, Campeo. Carol had moved there to be with her girlfriend. The details are so gruesome, I'm not going to recount them. She was tortured and killed.
Yeah, and well, scalped and skinned is what we've heard. I just don't know what the motive is. They're calling on Reddit and all the chat groups, they're calling it lesbophobia, but I think more details certainly have to come out.
Yes.
I know so many lesbians from Brazil. There's a vibrant lesbian community there in Rio and elsewhere in Sao Paulo. So, look, I hope they get to the bottom of that.
In Africa, Catholic bishops of Africa and Madagascar issued a unified statement refusing to follow the Pope's declaration that the blessing of same-sex couples is allowed, saying such unions are contrary to the will of their God. They say, and I don't doubt this, that the Pope's declaration has sown unrest among the Catholic faithful there.
Yes, well.
Germany?
Yes, Germany's federal government has a bit of good news for its people. It plans to extend parental right to the non-biological mothers in lesbian couples. German Minister of Justice Markus Buschmann has stated that lesbians and gay couples will now have the same rights to happiness as straight couples. This was brought about because in 2020, more than a dozen lesbians went to court.
And we thank our longtime viewer, Mark, for this story.
Yes, reform the civil codes. That's
All right,
what they did.
Let's get to the awards.
Yes, the very gay awards. First of all, the Critics' Choice Awards. We had a few, didn't we? We had Jonathan Bailey get Best Supporting Actor.
We had in terms of the order of our pictures, we had out Maria Bello.
Oh, Maria.
Best Supporting Actress in a TV limited series for Beef on Netflix. Do you watch Beef?
I don't watch it. I've heard about it.
I want to watch it now.
I'm going to watch it now. I didn't know she was in it.
Then Ayo Edebiri,
Yes.
Best Actress in a Comedy Series for The Bear on FX. And then Jonathan Bailey.
Yeah, for Best Supporting Actor for Fellow Travellers, he pipped Matt Bomer at the post, but he did say to Matt, "I share this with you, Matt," and gave a fabulous speech mentioning his 93-year-old grandmother.
He said, I share it with you. He said, those of you who have seen Fellow Travelers know that Matt and I come together. Yeah. That was very cute.
A bit racy, that one, I thought.
He said this, well, it's an innocent enough remark. He said the series is an education, but for us it's a vital truth, a reminder that LGBTQ people have always existed, mostly hidden. He thanked those who came before him and dedicated his award to all the people who lost their lives in the 80s and 90s. And to every LGBTQ person who still lives in a bigoted community which still surround us. So it's quite moving.
It's a beautiful
and by the way, we would love to show you these clips, but they don't belong to us. We are going to link to all these clips of these major acceptance speeches.
In the newsletter.
In our newsletter. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, you go to gayusatv.org. There's a link there. You sign up. You get a weekly email from us telling you what's on the show. And then let's go to the Emmy Awards.
Where do you want to start?
And of course, Ayo Edebiri also won for Best Comedy Supporting Actress for The Bear on FX. And then there's Niecy Nash-Betts. She
won for Dharma. Best Supporting Actress in a Limited Series. That was a very moving role. It seems like a lifetime ago now, but we have to remember the Emmys were postponed from September till now because of the SAG-AFTRA, because of the strike, the WGA strike. Yes.
Yes. So she thanked her her monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer stories on Netflix. She thanked her better half for, quote, picking me up when I was gutted from this work. She accepted on behalf of every black or brown woman who has gone unheard and over-policed, like Sandra Bland and Breonna Taylor. Now, of course, this was Martin Luther King Day in which this ceremony was taking place. And then she went skinny dipping at the hotel with her wife, Jessica.
Oh, you've got to see this. It's too funny. Go to her Instagram account, but it's a little bit racy too. They're in this pool in the hotel with a bottle of champagne and then quickly getting off camera, you know.
She knows how to celebrate.
Has to celebrate.
As an artist, she said, my job is to speak truth to power, and I'm a do it till the day I die. And you know who else I want to thank? I want to thank me for believing in me and doing what they said I could not do. It was quite moving. And again, we'll show you her saying it if you sign up for our email.
Yeah, I love that.
Right.
Who else was a highlight of the Emmys? Who else you got?
Well, yes, of course.
The Elton John is now an EGOT. He's got his Emmy, his Grammy, his Oscar, and his Tony. And in this category, which was the best live variety special, he actually beat the Oscars ceremonies and the Tony ceremonies to get his award for his fabulous concert.
Right.
That was great. And
RuPaul's Drag Race won yet again on MTV. Again, won for Best Competition. And RuPaul said, if a drag queen wants to read you a story at a library, listen to her, because knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, GLAAD was given an award.
Yeah, received the Governor's Award presented by Coleman Domingo, who's having a bit of a year this year, which is terrific.
Yes.
But this was really, really fabulous to see.
And we have this video in our email as well.
Yep.
And that's Sarah Kate Ellis, at the CEO in the center there.
And the thing that went viral, though, was Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes.
Jennifer
but
Coolidge.
let me finish up on GLAAD, because, again, I want to quote some of it to people,
Please do.
if I may.
Yes.
You know, it was a good speech that Sarah Kate Ellis gave. She said, so many people have worked tirelessly to get LGBTQ representation here. For us, this work is personal. For me, it's about my wife and my kids, our kids, she said. What the world sees on TV directly influences how we treat each other and the decisions we make in our living room, schools, at work, and at the ballot box. The world urgently needs culture-changing stories about transgender people, because more Americans say they have seen a ghost than know a trans person. And when you don't know people, it's easy to demonize them. And she said visibility creates understanding, and sharing stories is the antidote. So now's the time to take action. And she was getting a lot of affirmation from the audience over this. And it's really, that's quite bold for GLAAD, which was formed like in 1985, when we were so besieged by the AIDS crisis and the sensationalization in papers like the New York Post, which was our first protest. They showed a clip from that. I was there. We shook dirty rags at the New York Post. Now, of course, you know, we do it at Fox News and everything else.
Yes.
And then there was the men kissing at the Emmys.
Yes.
Yes. The men from The Bear, there they are. When they got up on stage, we're going at it. And Succession, Kieran Culkin, now that's actually from the
Critics' Choice.
Golden Globes.
Golden Globes.
I sent another picture of it, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Kieran Culkin kisses Brian Cox on the lips, just as Cox kissed Culkin at the Globes. You know, as they say in The Boys in the Band, once is youth, twice a phase, maybe, but 3 times you liked it. All right. And now we're going to talk about the play that we saw, Prayer for the French Republic, by gay playwright Joshua Harmon. This is not a gay-themed show. There was one mention of lesbians for 2 seconds, and directed by the out director David Cromer. It's about a Jewish family in Paris in 2016, grappling with the question of staying or fleeing, which is, I mean, certainly a big question for Jews in terms of there was rising anti-Semitism then, there's rising anti-Semitism now. They say 8,000. This play gives you a lot of information. 8,000 Jews at that time from Paris or from France left for Israel to get out of France. I mean, of course, if you talk about going to Israel now, of course, we're going into a hot spot. But anyway, but it also had flashbacks in this. You're in the same apartment for the entire time. To the grandparents of one of the main characters lived there, somehow survived as Jews in their apartment in World War II.
Yes.
When the Nazis were there taking over. And it also asked the question, why do they hate us? I mean, they actually address this. I mean, this is a Jewish family grappling with this. The son in the family, he's about 25 or something like that. He got a little religious, so he wears a yarmulke. And he in one of the early scenes, I'm not giving too much away, he gets beat up on the street for it. And his mother wants him to wear a baseball cap, cover it up, and that becomes a big issue. And he says, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live that way. You know, it's like us. Gay people deciding, do I hold hands or not where I am, and invite, or do I wear? You know.
What I liked about this play, it was 3 hours long with 2 intermissions, so it's pretty much an epic investment of your time. But what I liked about it was it did something that theatre does that other things cannot do, which is draw you into somebody else's life, somebody else's experience. It's not like scrolling on your phone and seeing more terrible news from CNN about the Gaza Strip. It's like the nuance and the texture of this play, the intergenerational scenes, the monologues, some of the very heated dialogue. It really is the closest we can come in a sort of Aristotelian way to empathy, to understanding somebody else's position. And I did need this play because I'd very much gotten embedded in the Gaza and the atrocities and the 24,000 deaths, and you feel yourself tipping into that way. And then it's like, yes, but what about the thousands of years of persecution of Jewish people, which this play teases out, and it reminds you of their psychosis and their always being under attack. So yeah, it was an interesting play.
Well, it's set in 2016, and so there's references to the election of Trump, which comes as a shock, and the rise of Marine Le Pen in France. Now, of course, in the play, there's one character who keeps saying, "Oh, stop worrying, she's never going to be the president of France." Well, she may the next time. I almost wish that Joshua, since he was revising the play somewhat for the Broadway production, this was a big hit off-Broadway 2 years ago, that he might have addressed some of that. And of course, and also addressed the whole situation we're in right now, the really complex situation with the war in the Middle East that's happening right now. But it is what it is.
I didn't mind so much that it was stationary in 2016, because I'm not sure we've even gotten over the events of 2016 yet. I don't feel we've really digested them and processed
them. Get over them. They're accelerating.
It's almost like it's happening again, frankly. So,
But, as I pointed out, before, yes, there are governments around the world that have gone to the right, but in some places where they had right-wing governments, they've gone to the left, because basically when people are unhappy, they just vote for change. So we don't quite know what's going to happen this year, and that's why we're all on edge.
I think I know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to say it.
What will happen is we will prevail if we all band together and unite and work together. That's what will happen.
Yes.
That's how we prevail. And you know what? I mean, if we lose an election or something, and look, we lost the House this year, right? We become countercultural as much as we can. Now, I realize things can get really oppressive in really totalitarian states, and then you have to go into hiding. I hope we don't have to do that. I certainly don't intend to.
Well, my very
not at my advanced age.
Not at your advanced age, but I did want to call out again Jennifer Coolidge for having the most viral moment, and probably this is the coda I want to end the show on. Is I didn't think I'd ever see the day that a straight actress could develop a cult following and allude to it in a way that everyone understands when she's at the podium and says, "I just want to thank all the evil gays," and that we don't actually
a line from the show.
A line from the show, but we don't have to go out there now picketing that some actress called us evil. There is a trajectory that we
that you can understand the difference between
that's
a character.
Right, exactly. The irony, and that it's celebrated, and in fact made a fabulous career for her. So that was amusing, and of course it went viral.
Some people who play evil characters get spit on the street. It's true. People take these things very seriously. We're almost out of time. It's been great to be with you. As I said, Ann will be back next week. Tanned and ready.
Tanned? Where is she gone?
Oh, am I allowed to say?
I don't know.
I'll let Ann tell you next week. But thanks for being with us, and we appreciate your watching.